Hello, and thank you for joining us today. In the aftermath of Hamas' brutal attack on October 7th, and now 3 weeks into the ongoing conflict in Israel, we wanted to provide you an insight, an update on how the Israeli tech ecosystem is stepping up with the resilience and adaptability that characterize the ecosystem and indeed our nation. We see startup companies innovating, pivoting, developing, ensuring business continuity to their customers and partners worldwide. Equally important, we've witnessed amazing global support from the global business community, investors, multinationals, that is extremely important, not just morally, but also helping the ecosystem navigate in turbulent waters. At Startup Nation Central, we double down on our resources and efforts to help startup companies and other participants in the ecosystems to ensure that the Israeli high-tech delivers no matter what. And we're here really to hear from the practitioners and participants of the ecosystem. I'm very fortunate to have with me three of the leaders of Israeli tech ecosystem, Dr. Soffer from IBM, Yoni Assia, CEO and founder of eToro, and Chemi from Pitango and the Paris Institute. I'm going to talk to each and every one of those, ask you a few questions, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience, so feel free to send those questions as we go along, and we'll try to answer as much as time allows us in the next stage. So let's jump right off, talk to our first guest, Dr. Soffer, VP of AI Technologies at IBM and Director of IBM's Research Lab in Haifa in Israel. Aya is really one of the world-renowned AI specialists and experts. And IBM has been probably the first multinational to set shop in Israel back in 1949, right after the establishment of our modern state. So, Aya, first of all, thank you very much for joining us today.
And maybe, thank you for having me, Avi.
And maybe the first question really that I think it's just interesting to hear, what are you seeing on the ground? What are some of the challenges that you had to confront in terms of business continuity, employee safety, and the like, and how do you address those challenges in the past 3 weeks?
Okay, so thanks, Avi. When the war broke out on Saturday, our first priority obviously was to confirm the safety of our employees and their families, and then after that to connect and understand their needs. What are they facing? How can we help them? And so on. Unfortunately, one IBM employee and one retiree were killed that day on Saturday, so we also had to help them and the company mourn. And many others, like everyone else in Israel, lost relatives and friends. Based on the discussions with our employees, we identified what forms of support, how can we help them? And we started offering, I will not list, it's like a very, very long list, but some of it is financial, especially for employees who need to be evacuated from their homes, emotional support for all our employees and their families through a third-party company, connections to volunteering efforts where appropriate, and most importantly, we're being very, very, very flexible with all our employees, telling them to spend time where they think they need to spend most time, whether it's with their families, whether it's in their communities, or whether it's with work. And we'll get to that in a minute, because it is very important for our employees and for us also to continue to deliver and to continue to stand behind our commitments to the company and to our clients. And to do that from a business continuity, realizing that we obviously are not working at 100% capacity, what we did is to decide where we want to focus, look through our portfolio, figure out where we need to focus our energies on the most important thing, and maybe deprioritize some things that are longer term, strategic, and so on. Look at where we are lacking people, whether they're in military reserve or just they're not right now fully functioning. Moving some resources to do that, make sure that all our data can access from outside of, so a lot of just repositioning people to make sure we're focusing on the most important things. The one thing I see and is very motivating for all of us is the motivation is very high. Like people who are working find work, their sanity, their solace, and want to prove. They want to prove to the world, they want to prove to IBM, they want to prove to our customers that we are still delivering, you can trust us, and so on. And some examples, just I can tell you in the last 3 weeks, from the labs that I run in research, from some of our development organizations in IBM. We had 5 papers delivered to the top NLP conference just last week. We delivered some very important components for evaluations of IBM's new language models. Trusteer released a new version of their product, and they're supporting customers, acquiring new customers. So it's really about focus. And the interesting thing through doing this is maybe not too surprising for people who run large organizations. I'm actually finding us more effective, right? So by focusing and by, on the most important things for the short term, you see people are more effective and we can get things out more quickly because we're not distracted, from some of the other things. And again, I just want to reiterate, this is after taking into account who's mentally and physically available to work, and taking all these people and focusing on getting work done.
Yeah, thank you for that, Daya. And I must say that we've seen the very similar phenomena in other company with sort of a all hands of deck mentality, and people really putting their heads down, trying to compensate or focus on the things that matter more in terms of the business continuity. From your perspective as a multinational company, it's interesting. And by the way, as I've said, there've been multiple support statements from leaders of the community, including your CEO and chairman, but just in general, in terms of your relationship, with the headquarters and other sites, how's that going along in these times of conflict?
Okay. So first, I have to say it's very important for all of us to see that, our global leaders are supporting us, both as Israelis and, of course, they will support us as their employees, but even just as Israelis. And I have to say that ever since this thing starting Saturday, I've been wrapped with, the warmth and the care of the people I work with, sending me emails, sending me Slack messages, LinkedIn for people who no longer work at IBM, and so on. And I just feel constant, care about our situation. It's important to continue to have this because, the first few weeks, yes, sure, everybody is still shocked by what happened and so on. So for us, it's very important to continue to have this understanding and the empathy, and to just feel like the corporation has my back. I just want to feel that IBM understands what I'm going through and has my back. But having said that, I think it's also important that our companies demonstrate they continue to trust us and, to meet our commitments without concession. So I don't want them to help me by giving me discounts, moving work elsewhere. Oh, that's fine, we're okay, we understand you don't work. No, I want them to understand what we're going through, have our back. When I need help, help me. And when I don't need help, just let us continue to do our thing. And one thing, Avi, that I learned is the first week, I was like, when I talked to people, I was trying to convey business as usual. Oh yeah, it's hard, but we're strong, and so on and so forth. And I discovered they just weren't able to really understand, not surprisingly, weren't able to understand what we're really, really going through. And that we need to share our stories. We need to share what we're feeling more naturally than I would say we Israelis, at least I can speak for myself, typically tend to do. And to help doing that, I organized with the head of research in IBM a session where we had some employees come forward and tell their stories. So these could be stories of pain, bravery, volunteer activities, how they're working at times of war. And the session was just amazing. It was important for everybody to hear each other, but I just saw how it sunk in, and have since been doing that more myself, and encourage my employees and every organization is really to share the stories and show that we're committed, through our work, but also share what we're going through and so on if we really want people to understand what we are going through.
And lastly, I'm maybe let's try to keep it short. We can expand later. I'm interested from a broader perspective because you've been in the ecosystem for a long time, and I'm wondering what are your thoughts about the longer-term viability of the tech ecosystem, following this crisis and the aftermath of that attack.
Yes. So I've actually been in the ecosystem more than you would think, Avi. And this period reminds me of my personal experience during the Yom Kippur War in 1973. My father was one of the founders of SNC, pioneer in medical imaging, and I would say one of the first citizens of Startup Nation. And he was scheduled to fly to the US on Sunday, the morning after the war started. And that evening, the war just started. There was consultation at home. Should he fly? Should he not fly? And he did. He boarded the plane, leaving my mother with 3 kids and a grandmother at home. She herself is a medical professional working at Rambam Hospital, to go through, to just so he could represent Helsinki, go to the conference, and the same statement we're making today. So my lesson from this is it's not, we all feel like, oh, it's the first time it's happening to us. No, it's not. And we're a very resilient community. And the hardships we're facing now, we will one day look back. And I do think we've just become stronger. We know the saying, necessity is the mother of all innovation. There's so many efforts now using technology to help in the war. I could just start imagining the new startups, the new companies, the new things that come out of all of this innovation and the connections. So I have no doubt that long term we will prevail and come out even stronger, and Israel will continue to be a global tech and innovation leader.
Thank you so much for that message, Aya, and for sharing that personal experience. Moving up to our next guest, Yoni Assia. A smaller company than IBM for sure, but not a small company anymore. I mean, founded in 2007, really grew up to be a global leading company, so with over 30 million registered users, valued, I believe, at 3.5 billion, Yoni, if I'm not mistaken, and really, having multiple sites worldwide. And Yoni, as I said, is the founder of the company and the CEO. So first of all, thank you very much for joining us, and I know it'll be extremely important also to hear from you. What sort of action did you take, to address the challenges both from the employee and the business aspects in the last 3 weeks?
Sure. So first, thank you very much for having me. It's great to see Chemi, one of my first investors, here with me. I think first, what we've learned, and of course, this is very sad days for Israel, and you never compare a crisis to a crisis. But the first thing we've learned during crisis is over-communicate. We, on Saturday night, sent an email to everyone, basically giving some light to our 1,500 employees worldwide, out of them about 900 in Israel. So we also have 600 employees worldwide. So we communicated with everyone. To say we are basically turning on, so of course talking about the situation, but thinking on our business continuity plans, where the first priority always is our eTorians, our personnel, where they are. We basically transformed our entire HR from all around the world to connect to people already on Sunday to understand where everybody is. Has anyone been impacted directly or close family? Very luckily, so far the answer is no. We started providing from day one a mental help line for employees. Every single person of the 900 eTorians in Israel was called to by HR to understand again where they are. We immediately notified that people are welcome to sort of work from home. So that was the first 2 weeks was obvious. Everybody's moving from back to work from home. Although now all of our offices in the 3rd week started to open, so we gradually opened and asked people, whoever wants to come. Again, some people are in reserves, some people have their family in reserves, and obviously education system, right? So each story is about a bit different, but we did provide that personal care for everyone in the company. Second, which I think really helped in eToro, is we opened an eToro for Good group, WhatsApp group now with 550 volunteers who are sharing volunteering opportunities, donation opportunities for a lot of eTorians. I know those first 2 weeks feeling that they can help, that they can volunteer, that they can donate, really helped everyone in eToro, and they saw also how much the company is participating. We approved 1% of the beta of the company also as donations, and updated everyone and created process around it. And we announced that during November, up until at least the end of November, people can continue to volunteer 1 day a week, working with their managers. And we know that's something that gives people a lot of power in this time of crisis. We've also enabled the business forum. We created basically a website to help our foreign employees and some of our investors who asked us continuously, how can we help? So together with the business forum in Israel, we created a website. We've created basically a way for some of our employees even and some of our investors to be able to donate and participate in the process of doing good in that process. From a BCP point of view, I admit it took me like the first week of shock, but luckily I have a very strong global COO that took on the BCP process across eToro, mapped all of the critical functions, moved for the first 2 weeks, we sort of moved to let's look at critical path. Our business is a regulated global business. We're a global financial institution, so we're required to have BCP plans in place. And our businesses around the world sort of chipped in, understanding that capacity for the first 2 weeks was lower, than the third week significantly increased, and now we're transforming into a routine in crisis mode. So there is still obviously in Israel a crisis, but we're moving to routine in crisis. And I think we've learned a lot, unfortunately, from both COVID, where a lot of the BCP actions we're doing now sort of were written during COVID. And also we have a team of 50 people in Ukraine. And I remember just a year and a half ago, we were very alarmed at the beginning. We provided them a lot of help. And then gradually the team is still there with a great site manager. And gradually sort of they learned sort of the routine in crisis mode there.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And again, I think that's a wide phenomena we see. I mean, Yoni, you're critical about taking 2 weeks to get to full mode. I think that's pretty agile and swift. And we're seeing similar acts taken by companies which really leverage their global sites in order to focus those internal resources. Again, thinking a little bit into the future, it's interesting for me to hear your thoughts about the long-term impact that the war might have on the Israeli tech ecosystem. And how should the country or the ecosystem address these challenges?
I think, again, very much sort of in a friendly way here in this discussion, I have no doubt that the Israeli tech ecosystem will continue to grow and strive. We obviously are in the midst of change. I think there's going to be a lot of innovation coming up, a lot of resilience. I think BCP processes will obviously be significantly improved. And I think it is our responsibility, and I think it makes our employees very proud when, I came up the second day, we did the all hands with all 1,500 employees. And I said, it's our responsibilities as tech companies in Israel to continue and grow, to continue and generate business. We had no interruption of business at eToro. We kept on growing during October. And I think that provides for all of the eTorians and our investors as well, which we've obviously updated throughout the process, the understanding that we understand how important it is for us to continue and invest, to continue and build great businesses out of Israel, to build and continue to grow the economy of Israel. And I think that's what we've seen a lot in the past 3 weeks now, is everybody in the Israeli ecosystem understanding sort of what can I do to sort of to grow Israel back? Where is the place that I need to volunteer or focus? And I think that's also very true. We've seen it with our investors. I told some of my investors, like, you should make sure you have a bigger pocket for Israel, because we need, we'll want more Israeli investments in the next 12, 18 months.
Thank you very much for that. And again, just echoing your point, I think the mobilization of the high-tech employees and companies to support the national needs, both immediate and reconstructions, were really a great representative of the spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship and commitment. And maybe two other quick points I would just share with the audience. I wouldn't call them silver linings in the situation, but certainly from the high-tech perspective, the fact that we serve the global market means that demand hasn't gone down. I mean, unlike other sectors in Israel, like tourism or retail that are impacted, the demand for Israeli innovation for products and services like eToro provides is still strong, and that's certainly a plus. And the second thing is that the devaluation that we've seen of the shekel, the Israeli currency, actually makes Israeli companies more efficient, cheaper in terms of a multinational perspective, extend the runway of startups, and again, give extra fuel to Israeli startup companies. So thank you for that, Yoni. I'm sure we'll take more questions as we go along. Really moving to our last speaker, in terms of his opening statements, and I'm really glad we have today with us Chemi Peres, really one of the leaders of Israeli tech ecosystem in so many aspects. Chemi, was the founder, co-founder, and managing partner of Pitango, one of Israel's earliest top-tier and leading venture capital firms, so has both the perspective of an investor, but also of the startup. He's also the chairman of the Paris Institute for Peace and Innovation, and as such, it can really give, I think, all of us a much broader perspective, both on what we've seen on the ground in Israel, but maybe place it also in a global perspective. And Chemi, again, first of all, thank you for joining us, but really, I would just ask if you can share your insights about what we're seeing today in Israel, in the region, and in the world.
Thank you so much, Avi. Great to see Aya and to see Yoni and everyone on the screen. The recent 3 weeks have been quite challenging. I think we really started with a shocking savagery attack, inhuman attack that took a very heavy toll on the Israeli society. But I want to start by saying that we will come out of this horrific attack stronger than ever before. Some of our friends in the US said that this is our 9/11 moment, not only because we were taken by surprise in a savagery attack, but also by the fact that the attackers were not looking to win anything. They just wanted to kill and to cause terrorism. And that is not a problem that Israel only experiences. It is becoming a global challenge, one of a long series of global challenges that we have been seeing for the last few years. We started to see the Corona global challenge, then climate change, and global terrorism. And these phenomena needs to be addressed by the whole world. And I was very surprised and very pleasant to see the level of solidarity that the world has demonstrated. Our investors, our partners, customers, service providers from all over the world send us notes. People said that they're thinking of us, that they're standing by us. And then we started to see the solidarity that came from the United States with the visit of President Biden and the support that he lended us and of course, countries from Europe and other places around the world, including the Arab world, that have been reaching out and sharing with us their devastation of what is happening. Israel has been existing as a state for the last 75 years. This is not the first time we're encountering an attack or a challenge on our borders, but one has to remember that we are stronger than ever before. And two things have been really very clear to our society for the last few years. Israel does not deal only with tikkun olam, making the world better, repairing the world, but it is becoming part of a global movement of solidarity. Because when we enter this world of global challenges, solidarity is critical. We have to work together in order to address those challenges together, because the situation will not be over anywhere before it is over everywhere. So we're working hand in hand with all of our partners, getting a lot of support. And the first steps were actually mentioned by Aya and by Yoni. Of course, the first thing is to reach out to your people, to your portfolio companies, to your investors, and talk to them, make sure that everyone is safe, that people are organized. And I was also overwhelmed by the level of proactivity of the Israeli high-tech sector and the civil society in general by supporting those who have been hurt, by providing support and assistance. And as time goes by, I think we have time now to also look at the high-tech ecosystem and start focus on that. What we see here is that one of the impact that we have, that people are either spending time in reserve or volunteering for the civil society issues. Companies, especially the early stage companies, unlike eToro or other growth stage companies, are going to face some challenges in the next, in the short term, primarily for funding requirements, especially when you live in a world where the interest rate has gone high. People tend to take less risk. And of course, when they see the situation, it becomes harder than before to raise capital, especially for early stage companies. There are a number of initiatives, very creative initiatives that started in the ecosystem to support early stage companies. And of course, myself and Pitango and many other funds and entrepreneurs and investors are now working very closely with a lot of startup companies, whether they are part of their portfolio or not, to create platforms to allow them to bridge the short-term requirement. There's so much potential going forward that can make the world so much better. But we do need some support in the next couple of months just to make sure that these companies have enough runway to carry on. The Israeli government is doing its share. New platforms are being created, funds with no carry, no management fees are created for the short-term double bottom line funds to provide those great companies the runway to go safely through this process. Israel is extremely strong, is extremely resilient, and most importantly, we have no plan B. We're not going anywhere. We're staying here, and we're working very hard to make sure that Israel will be safer than ever before. Usually, at times of crisis, you always look for the opportunity to grow stronger than you started the crisis. And I'm optimistic, and I believe that when the war will be ended, Israel will be stronger than before, much more resilient, much more determined, and will add much more value to the world than we ever did before. This is something that I can observe across the ecosystem. It's a mindset, it's a spirit, And those are driving Israel, in my view, into a much better and safer future than the one we saw before October 7th. So I'm happy to be part of this group and, you know, respond to any questions. And I'm sure that Israel needs to be supported by a lot of people from around the world, because this is something that it's not only our battle, it's the world battle against extremism, against savagery, against terrorism, that no nation around the world is now protected from.
Thank you very much, Chemi, for these important words. Let me just say that Chemi has mentioned a few initiatives that have been created to provide really bridge funding, emergency funding for those startups. 2023 hasn't been an easy year to raise money for tech companies. Again, Chemi has mentioned that for obvious reasons that are more global than local. Let me just say that Startup Nation Central, we've built a central hub, already engaged with hundreds of startups, and all the information actually around those initiatives can be found at our website or at our Finder platforms. We're happy to make connections from people who want to support the ecosystem, but also that recognize the opportunity. All of these funds actually have no management fees, no carried interest, and provide, I think, quite an attractive investment opportunity for people who want to be involved. Equally, people who want to help through professional support, advisory, connections. We've built the platforms to match those skills with the needs of specific companies. And again, everything can be found at our website, Finder platform. And our team, is willing to do those matching and connections. Maybe go to a few of the questions. We have quite a few of those. Starting from a very practical question to Yoni and I guess also to Aya. But Yoni, first of all, did you face problems in serving deadlines or some delays for customers?
For us, we haven't seen any interruption of the business. We've managed very quickly to sort of shift focus on critical path, move some of sort of BCP functions from Israel to Europe, US, Australia, where we run around the clock. We did update because we are required to our regulators across the globe that we are operating in BCP, that we don't consider, we're looking at all of the scenarios, but we're not currently seeing any scenario of business interruption. I think from a product roadmap point of view, we did reprioritize, right? Focus on sort of the critical path and made sure that we as management are looking at sort of what happened over the last 3 weeks. What is that shift in priorities of development? But again, I would say the operational processes are very clear, and we run 24/7 because we trade crypto as well. I think new developments sort of put us in a focus of sort of looking at everything and prioritizing based on sort of what can we do on the current resources.
Thank you very much for that. Actually, there's a question to Chemi. You talked, and I mentioned as well, the difficulty to raise money. And in many aspects, the question speaks about a halt in investment. I must say very genuinely, there's no halt in investments. Investments are being done as we speak. With M&A deals are being done. There are acquisitions that were just published. And I know for a fact that there are quite a few that are in the process of signing. But in terms of, if you need kind of to look into the near future, how challenging do you think funding is going to be, for startups in Israel? When is this going to change? What does your crystal ball tell you?
Yeah, so you have to take a look at what is happening in the world and what is happening right now in Israel. What is happening in the world is that we need to complete a process where on one hand, AI is much more entrenched within the business operations of a lot of companies, which makes them much more efficient and resilient. And at the same time, automation will cover up for all the jobs that were lost during Corona. As we know, post-Corona, we faced an inflation of scarcity, where in many industries, working hands left their jobs and moved to other jobs, more to the technology area. And so there are a lot of missing hands in logistics, in transportation, in industry, in agriculture, and so on and so forth. So you need to fill those positions with more automation, and at the same time, train many more people in the high-tech sector. What I see going forward is also a disruption, or I would say maybe new definitions for what is education and what is training. Job training as opposed to education. I think the world needs to find better ways and faster ways to train people to move from one job to another, while education is a different story. So as that goes on and productivity will come back on track, I believe that the interest rate will come down. And as they come down, the flow of capital into the high-tech industry will continue to rise. So the last 10 years before Corona, where we saw that people are moving capital from liquidity to growth, when the interest rate went up, the trend has started to reverse. People shifted more capital to liquid assets to enjoy the high interest rates. But as that process is completed, I believe interest rate will go down, and there will be another movement towards growth. So that's what I see in the long run in the world. In the short term, in Israel, right now there is a perceived risk due to what is happening right now in the Gaza Strip. Israel is fighting for its defense. We want to make sure that the southern part of Israel is safe and secured. We're not trying to kill as many people as possible, or we're not trying to get revenge. What we are trying to do is take away the weapons from those inhuman terrorists. So it will take some time, but I'm sure that it will be ended by changing the policy and making sure that Israel is safer. And when people will see that Israel is safe, and it will happen very, very soon, I believe that that risk will go away and will be aligned with more what is happening in the world in terms of funding. But for the short term, and I think that those initiatives, Avi, that you mentioned, are short-term initiatives. We're not talking about huge funds.
Right.
We try to raise them as quickly as possible to make them efficient in the short term. But I believe that Israel will go back to growth together with the world. And as the interest rate will come down, Israel is going to enjoy a tremendous decade ahead of us, when we have AI, when we have quantum computing, when we have tools that will make us much more efficient. Israel will grow beyond its size, because the more technology advances, the better Israel is.
Thank you for that. Aya, there's a question for you. A lot of the listeners, a lot of the participants are from multinational companies, and actually people are interested just to know what sort of reaction did you get from your colleagues in the world? You know, how is this event perceived by technological and business leadership?
So as I said before, we were really bombarded, I think, by people asking about us. What I sense is, first of all, it's the people aspect, and everybody wants to hear we're safe. So that's, I think, the most important thing everybody wants to understand. Are we in danger? Are we safe? And so on. But once we go beyond that, then it really is, I would say the first week it was surprise. It was like, oh, we showed up to a video conference. I was like, oh, you're there. But now it's interest. We were on a video call, and there's Teva Adom, siren. So people have to go into the safe room. So there's a lot of just genuine interest to understand what we're going through, how this is working. what are we able to do? People are very proud, I think, of what they're doing also outside of work. So a lot of storytelling on volunteer efforts. There's a lot of curiosity. I would summarize it as mostly as curiosity to understand, and the more, as I said before, the more we share, not just the tour. They're also, of course, the first week everybody saw the videos and was horrified, and a lot of show of just support and understanding, as Chemi just mentioned. But after that, it's a personal relationship, and they want to know what we're going through. People who have kids in the army and they're worrying, and then work. Like, how are you working? How are you able to work? And very quickly it becomes professional. This is the other thing. Every conversation, okay, 3-4 minutes. Okay, how's it going? Are you safe? And by now we've gone back to just down to business. Work a lot on AI. I agreed with every word Chemi was saying on automation, AI, and it's really back to how can we just get things done and move faster.
Sure. Okay, we have one time, unfortunately, for just one last question. Chemi, it's for you, but then I'll be happy to make a round of closing statements from all of you. So Chemi, you can combine your closing statements with the answer to the question. The question is, do you think that some Israeli startups, for some Israeli startups, expanding to certain countries will be more difficult now? Do you think there are regions that might be out of limit?
I think that as we are operating in Gaza, and as I said, we're fighting to release 240 hostages, men, women, children, babies, old people, and to allow those that have been evacuated from their villages to come back. As long as this operation continues, we're going to see some rise of anti-Semitism, specifically from extremist groups that support Hamas. But I think that all the countries that are around the world needs to be very attentive to those potential events. We saw what happened in Russia, and we have to be very careful not to let those kind of phenomena grow, because we are not there to kill civilians. We are going after terrorists, and we want to gain security to Israel. It will be over soon, and I believe that life will continue to go back to track. I think that business continuity, Israel is operating all over the world. I did not hear of any company that we invested in or others that have been prevented from doing business in certain markets or certain countries. So that does not seem to be right now a problem. The only problem that we see right now is the perceived short-term risk, which makes it a little bit difficult for the early stage companies to raise money. I want to make sure that everyone understands. We love Israel. We are proud Israelis. We are resilient. We're a democracy. We're fighting for our security. And we have no plan B. We're not going anywhere. We're going to stay. We're going to grow. And in the last 75 years, even though we had our share of atrocities and conflicts, Israeli business continuity was complete and smooth. And for us, it's a mission to make sure that every customer is delivered, supported, and whatever it takes. We're going to work twice as hard as if needed to make sure that no one is going to be affected. We don't want anyone to fight our wars, and we don't want anyone to be hurt by the fact that Israel has been attacked here and there from time to time. We are resilient, we're growing, we're strong, we're stronger than any security risk that is going after Israel. And the business community should put its trust in Israel, knowing that the future is going to be even better than it was before. We are growing over time, getting stronger and better and more resilient. So Israel is here to stay. So feel free to continue to invest in Israel. There will be business continuity. We're going to serve every country and every society, no matter what.
Thank you very much, Chemi. Yoni.
I would love to resonate and also mention, it's been for me, although I'm already 42, but one of the first time in recent years where I called some of my older investors, and they told me, Yoni, we've been through Yom Kippur. It's fine. In every crisis we've been through as a country, we've became stronger. And we became stronger even when it was a global crisis like Corona. We learned a lot from the situation in Ukraine, where a lot of the Israeli companies still have employees. This is a national trauma that we'll always remember, but it also brings in the human part of Israeli companies. And this is something I'm hearing from our colleagues around the world, telling us it's amazing to see upon crisis how human Israeli companies are. How do they attend to their employees immediately? And there's a famous saying that says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And here this shows how strong and important Israeli culture is. And that's why we're going to get out stronger from this crisis as well.
Thank you very much, Yoni. Aya, your closing words.
You're on mute, Aya.
First, I want to say that as Chemi said, I hope this war is short and that we are able to achieve everything we set out to do with minimal losses, all 240 hostages back home. And that is, I think, all of our wish and my biggest wish, first and foremost. But as a representative of the multinational companies, we all understand the importance of multinational companies. They come to Israel for our brains, our talents, not because we have a big market, and maybe because our connections to the ecosystem, really. So as such, I would just reiterate the importance of business continuity, of delivering, of showing up, of all hands on deck, of even surprising the company and our customers with new ideas, new work, and whatever we can do to show our resiliency and that we can be trusted and that we are strong, and that the reason they came here continues to to stand strong, is where we need to continue to focus. And again, I have no doubt we already are doing it, and we will continue to do it, and it will just strengthen the trust and the belief the multinationals have in wanting to work with Israel and so on. So maybe if they used to be worried, who knows what happens. Now they will be reassured that what we know it will happen, and it's fine. We'll just continue to work with you guys.
Thank you very much. I thank you also, Yoni and Chemi, for joining us today. Really want to thank also our friends, our partners, from around the world that have joined this webinar, and actually that are working with us at Startup Nation Central. On every day, we try to connect the Israeli innovation economy to the global innovation challenges, and Israeli innovation will continue to make the world better with your partnership, with your help. We all hope, that we will be over this ongoing conflict and really back to maintaining, to innovating, as I said, to developing new products, to commercializing them, to putting them in the hands of customers, to really making this world better. So I do invite you to go to Startup Nation Central website and our Finder platform. You'll find there more information about the initiatives, more information about the resilience of the Israeli high tech. We hope for better futures. We thank you for your support. We look forward to continue doing more business with you. And again, thank our speakers for joining us today. I wish us all a safe rest of the day and rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Avi.